Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Haleema Sadia. I am the moderator for today's session, as you heard for us. So just a quick, introduction of myself. I am a lecturer at the Department of International Relations in National University of Modern Languages here in Pakistan. I'm also a doctoral candidate at the Center for National Peace and Stability in NAST. And currently I am a research fellow at the Rhodes Initiative. So before I asked Mr. Pravin Sawhney to give us a lecture on the artificial intelligence in warfare, I would like to introduce him. Mr. Pravin Sawhney is the author of 4 books, The Defense Makeover, 10 Myths That Shape India's Image, published in 2001, then Operation Parakram, The War Unfinished, which was published in 2002, Dragon on Our Doorstep, Managing China Through Military Power, which was published in 2017, and the very latest book, which will be out soon in a few days, The Last War, How AI Will Shape India's Final Showdown with China. He has been a visiting fellow at the Royal United Services Institute for Defense and Security Studies, London, and a visiting scholar at the Sadia National Laboratories sponsored Cooperative Monitoring Center, Albuquerque in the US. He has also been the editor and publisher of Force News magazine since 2003. He has also been the editor and publisher of Force, I repeated that same sentence. He was the South Asia correspondent of the International Defense Review of Chains Information Group. And Mr. Pravin has also worked with numerous Indian newspapers as the defense editor and as the defense correspondent with the Times of India. He was a commissioned officer in the Indian Army for 14 years, after which he took premature retirement to pursue journalism. So without further ado, it's over to you, Mr.
And for inviting me over. I'm delighted to be here. And in fact, this gives me an opportunity to introduce my coming book, which will perhaps be the first book which will look at artificial intelligence in warfare, its war concepts. Then it will look in the structure. It's a well-rounded book looking at all aspects of warfare, plus, of course, prosperity also. Now, what I intend doing today is there are 3 things I basically want to introduce this subject, artificial intelligence, to the many people who are perhaps pursuing the subject, but are not to be very clear about what exactly is artificial intelligence. So my first capsule will be explaining artificial intelligence basics. What is this? And in the second part, then I will talk of, as everybody is aware, it is China and United States which are in competition because both have a comprehensive, extensive artificial intelligence ecosystem. No other country has that. So because they are in competition, I believe, and I will explain why I say so, that China is well poised to actually to accomplish the first mover advantage in this new war against the United States. And then, of course, I will look at a few high points about how artificial intelligence will transform warfare. Let's start with the basics. So, what is artificial intelligence? It is basically human intelligence into machine. That means human intelligence to be converted into artificial intelligence, which then goes in the machines. That means artificial intelligence terminology per se the world they got together, and that is where for the first time this terminology was coined, artificial intelligence. The whole idea was of those people then that why can't the machines have as much intelligence as a human being can have? But thereafter nothing much came from it until 2012. Until 2012, what they were calling artificial intelligence was basically quicker calculations. It was nothing more than that. So it was what we call today a handcrafted knowledge artificial intelligence or rule-based data analytics, which basically rather data Now you want to cull out intelligence from there, from that data. So what you do is you take a computer instead of a human being to get the intelligence, then transform all that data into a language which the computer understands, which is the language of bits, which is ones and zeros, is the language that the computer understands. You convert that into the data the computer understands, and you put the input. And in quick time, you will get the result. Basically, quick that the Russian grandmaster Garry Kasparov in 1997, he was he was the chess champion, and he lost in a six game chess game to the supercomputer. Now people said this was artificial intelligence which was at work. No, it wasn't. It was only that the computer, it could do faster calculations than Gary could do. So then something happened in 2012. Now, this is something we have to understand. Any student artificial intelligence has to understand the significance of this. And this is called deep learning. Deep learning a discovery which is comparable to the nuclear weapons as well as the internet, which was there in the last century. This is the significance that is being given to deep learning. Let's understand what is deep learning. Deep learning is, there was this group of scientists, Canadian scientists, this group led by a Canadian scientist called Jeffrey Hinton. Now, Jeffrey Hinton said that if we are looking at artificial intelligence, why don't we look at the human intelligence first? That what is the human being and how his brain functions. So the idea was that, all right, they said a human has something called 100 billion neurons, which are interconnected by synapses. With that sort of a neurons and the synapses, what happens is when a human just sees any information or sees anything, then immediately the information is processed in the brain. Everything happened in an instance. So the information is progressed, then the person also has some previous knowledge, then the person has some intelligence about the subject, and then the person reasoned out, this is the way I will behave. So Hinton and his team said, all right, as far as the child is concerned, child also has, like an adult, 100 billion neurons. They said, all right, let's study a child, what a child does. So they found that the first thing that the child learns is, for example, child sees a cat. I'm just giving an example. Then a small child will identify, okay, the cat has eyes like this, cat is small, it has got four legs. There are some identification features that register with the child, and that is called contextualization, which basically means that a decision was taken, certain thinking that, all right, this is the characteristics that this particular animal has. That means there was a certain reliability about the whole thing. That is called to put things in a context, contextualization. Now, the other thing is, what a child can do is, once a child is familiar with a cat, and let's say there is a dog, then the child knows that, all right, it's in a similar family. So the child is likely to say, oh, that was cat, now this is something else, but very similar. That is called abstraction, which basically means that the child has a capability not only to identify a particular animal, but to use that knowledge to identify another animal. That is abstraction. And the third thing is what is called cognitive capabilities. This is very important. Cognitive is, even a small child knows that, all right, there is a crossing, I'm standing at a crossing, the bus is going there, so child automatically will stop at the crossing because the child will reason that, look, this will hurt me. So it is found that any child which is quick, I mean, all childs have a different, capability of understanding. Any child who's quick in comprehending, understanding, reason to understand another domain and cognitive capability, that is the ability to reason. It is believed that such children, they learn fast. They learn fast and they become intelligent as they grow up. So this is how a child or a human child progresses. With machines, now what they did was Jeffrey Hinton and company, the group, they said, all right, there are 100 billion neurons. We cannot create. Let's still try and create what came to be known as the neural network. Neural network basically means that you have created a block of connected algorithms. That means softwares, it's all interconnected. It's like that neural network. After that, how it works is that you have data. Data can be anything. Data can be a video, data can be a picture, data can be of a tank. It can be anything. So what you have is you have data scientists. Now, data scientist's job is first of all to improve data. If there is a missing link, the tank is not clearly visible in a photo, then they will insert that. That is called labeling. I'm just giving a bit about this to understand where we are headed. So the data scientist's job is, first of all, a certain machine learning. The machine learning again is a subset of artificial intelligence. In a machine learning, they have the algorithms. With that algorithm, they find the pattern or the meaning in those data that they have got. That means information which is there. That is the most important job. That is the job of what is called the computer scientist or the computer or the software engineer. What they do is now they create the neural network. They create the neural network depending on what output they are looking for from the information that is being fed into the system, into the neural networks. So once those algorithms are, then all this information done by the data scientist is now fed into the machine learning algorithm, which is a network. Now, obviously, the advanced, if there is more information on more, then it has to be advanced neural networks. They are trained now. Basically, what we are doing here is that a certain pattern, a result, a certain solution is being now fed into the neural networks, and they are getting trained on that. That all right, this is the right answer, and this is the way it should be. For example, just to make it more clear, there's been an military exercise. In a military exercise, whatever has the outcome, how the firing was done, in billions and billions of bits, billions and billions of data. It's a very huge task for the data scientists to information out of it. And that information, that means, all right, this was the positive result, or this is the correct answer, or what we call the solution, directive staff solution, that is now fed into the neural network. And the neural network is trained now through deep learning procedure. It is basically interconnected algorithms called deep learning. Now, deep learning algorithms which are trained by the information is what gives intelligence to the robot. The big difference here is that the artificial intelligence, what was being called earlier, what I said, is a handcrafted knowledge AI. That was basically about giving an input and knowing precisely the output that will come out of it. In this case, what will happen is that because the deep learning algorithms today now are trained on in a particular area. This is a domain specific thing. Because they have been trained. So in that particular application, when you say, all right, this is the problem now, and you feed the problem into the deep learning algorithms, it has been found that in most cases, the result that you get, it far exceeds the capability of a human being. Now, that is intelligence. The first was calculations. Calculation does not equate with intelligence. This is intelligence. But the problem here is all the three problems that I spoke to you earlier, that I mentioned earlier, contextualization. it is still stage of artificial intelligence, which is called artificial narrow intelligence. What artificial narrow intelligence lacks is all the three elements. It lacks contextualization. That means it will give you a result. The result will be very good. But if the result has gone wrong, it will not be able to tell you where exactly the result has gone wrong. Reliability of the result also. Reliability. So the biggest problem today is contextualization. Then abstraction. When you train a neural network, when you train a neural network by deep learning, create deep learning algorithms, which provides intelligence to a system or to a robot, then what happens is that that system is trained, but it is trained in a particular application, only for that application. It cannot be used for another application. This is a limitation. And the third limitation is it does not have the cognitive or the reasoning capabilities yet. So you will ask me, what we have is we have artificial narrow intelligence, where in one particular domain, there is a great possibility or a very high probability that it will produce results human capability. Now, but how will this happen is the point. So I will explain how this will happen. So how this will happen is very simple. There are three things involved here, as I was explaining you. One is that when I say the neural networks and you are putting the information there in these algorithms, you are talking about processing power. You are talking about processing power. Now, when you have advanced and more advanced neural networks, you need more and more processing power. Now, you have supercomputers. Now, countries which don't have sub, they have come up with some other solutions, like what we call the GPUs, the graphic processing unit. Then there is something called the testing unit. Then there is parallelism. See, I will not go into the details of all this. All this is there explained very easily in my book, The Last War. So lot of effort is being put, first of all, to see how the computing power can be increased. That is most important. Why it is important is because the more you train, the more you train a neural network, the better you will have the deep learning algorithms, which will make the machine intelligence or autonomous. The more a machine is intelligent, the more autonomous. Second requirement, the first is more computing power. Second is writing algorithms, the software algorithms. Now here, again, you need computer scientists, human resources, people who can write this, people who can write from scratch, people who need not write from scratch because there are a lot of these software libraries and frameworks there. They can be put to use. So that is the second part. Now I'll come to the most important part. And the most important part is data. Data. The data you have are the artificial narrow intelligence as the data you train it. Now, data is a big issue. Please understand why is a big issue is because, as I said, artificial narrow intelligence is domain specific today. We have not reached that stage where we have terminators. Terminators will happen when a machine or a computer will have reliability. How do we get reliability from artificial narrow intelligence? So the key is data. How the key is data is data is the new oil. Please don't accept that. It is not correct. Because data can be commercial data. Now, there's no point in having a data of a driverless car, which will be a data of the map, of the light systems, when it will become amber, when it will become green, when it will become red. How can you use that in a battlefield? So in a battlefield, what I have to do is that there are three. It is the general data, which in any campaign or exercise that you do, you collect the data, you collect that, all right, this is the way the gun behaved, this is what happened. This data goes in trillions and trillions of the way it is. Now, so one is that. Second is what I call the military data. Military data basically means that I am using the data I have secured from my Western command against Pakistan and trying to use it in China on their theater. That is a military data. I mean, it is there of the tank there, but it will not be so accurate. And the most important data in my assessment, and what I have very specifically mentioned in my book, is the operational data. That means you collect the data, you do a realistic combat exercise. The word is realistic. You all would be aware as scholars that most professional militaries also, they have a of, you see, trying to do what we call a truncated exercise, what we call, less people trying to save money or trying to do stage management. No, you cannot do that. It has to be a realistic combat exercise. The data collected from the combat exercise will be best for use in robots, which are eventually to be used in the same theater of war. That is operational data, and that is a big thing. For example, we have against China, as everybody is aware, Western Theater Command of China is what is pitted on the line of actual control with India. Now, if the Chinese are doing the exercises there on the Western Theater Command, in their Western Theater Command, they are doing exercises, and all sort of data is being collected. That data, what they can do is take that data. They don't have to bring their robots and unmanned machines there to the theater. They can train it elsewhere, and robots will be able to operate far better than the humans in the Western Theater Command. So this is a bit of a background how can be resolved. It is possible. There are other adversarial learning. That means your adversary, does it have the capability of cyber? Does it have the capability of electronic warfare? Does it have the capability of poisoning your operational data? Now, if your opponent does not have those capabilities, I mean, you are a major power and your opponent is a middle power which does not have. So what you can do is take the operational data, take the operational data, and if the operational data has been put together after extensive exercises and war where actually the operation is to eventually take place. So that is one point. Now see what Chinese have done. Now, what Chinese have done is, as we all are aware, Chinese in 2015 did their major military reforms. As part of the military reforms, they created theater commands. They created a Western theater command whose sole purpose is war with India. That is the sole purpose of the Western theater command. Now, 2015, they did reforms. These are all facts that I'm giving you. 2016, they created a blue force. Now, in the PLA thinking, the own side force is called red force. The is unlike the way the Indian military thinks, and the way the Indian military thinks is so what they did is they have created now a permanent blue force for all the theater commands. Thereafter, in 2017, this was unprecedented. For the first time, the directive was issued by the Central Military Commission, which is their highest policy-making body, regulations. And the same year, General Secretary Xi Jinping, he took over as the Commander-in-Chief of the Joint Operations Command Center. And in 2018, he became the first, the General Secretary, first Supreme Leader to directly address the combat troops and to tell them, to exhort them that look, combat training has to be realistic. Instead of passing this information or the directive through his various commanders, he thought he will address the all troops and officers, sorry, together. So the focus since 2018, as far as China is concerned, has been on realistic combat training. In other words, now what they are doing is, for the last 5 years, today now it's 2022, in my assessment by 2023, they will be ready with all their operational data, and in the artificial narrow intelligence, this is all doable, which I've explained in my book how it is doable in great details. They would have trained their robots. You see, this artificial narrow intelligence, it applies everywhere. It applies in the machines where you have the command and control. This is called autonomy at rest. That means the commanders can take the decisions faster. It applies to the robots in the field, so that the robots, when the robot sees a situation, which is called the autonomy in motion, when it's confronted, like any soldier is confronted, the robot is confronted with suddenly a situation in Western Theater Command, will know how to react, and the robot is likely to react in a far better way, more sensible way, productive way, precise way than a human being would. This is the whole game. Now, so this was the very basics of artificial intelligence. Now I come to my second point, which was about I saying that, look, this will be a huge advantage for the PLA. Huge advantage in first mover, sorry, they will have the first mover advantage. That look, in the 1991 Gulf War, which is what we call Operation Desert Storm, which the Americans had done against the Iraqis. Now, what had happened was that the Americans had trained, which is what is called their second offset strategy. They were not looking at the Iraqis, they were actually looking at the Soviet Union. This was in the 70s. The Soviet Union had created a lot of conventional weapons, and some were pretty good, and they had created a huge army which was comparable to the Soviet Union. So the Americans came up with this thinking of the second offset strategy, that look, let's abandon the concept of tactical nuclear weapons, which they had envisaged in the first Gulf War. Let's go a bit fast so that we keep China busy. So the Americans came up with this thinking, which have been now filled in my book. So you can get all that there. Now, the concept of the second offset was that let's forget about tactical nuclear weapons on the battlefield, because today the Soviet Union has the strategic nuclear weapons, which are of the same caliber, same size, same numbers as the United States. So they will not be deterred at all by a tactical nuclear weapons. They also have the tactical nuclear. Leave the nuclear weapons, go back to the conventional war fighting, and now they will look at look deep and shoot deep. The forces, the Soviet forces, they sort of group up for an attack or for a campaign. You should be able to hit them deep, you should be able to look deep, and you should be able to shoot deep. So two things were there in that. The one thing was what is called the battle networks. Battle networks is something that the Russians call the same system. The PLA calls it the operational systems. What the Americans call the battle networks. Now, battle networks basically what it means is this is software system. The Americans can take to another place, and this connects the sensors with the shooters through, of course, a command post. The idea is that the sensor passes the data to a command post, which is called the operating center. There the people are sitting, then they decide, all right, which shooter is to be nominated, and the shooter is nominated. So battle network is one thing. And the second was guided munition with help by space assets. So space was a capability which was in support. Space was not a war domain in 1991, which is entirely different. So they had two things going for them, which they were preparing against the Soviet Union. Take on the Soviet Union with this new thinking of look deep, shoot deep, which was the battle networks. How do we move the sensors and shooters? And then how do we, once we have seen, look deep is the battle network job. And then we shoot deep as the guided munition with the help from the space assets. It is another, they never tested this against the Soviet Union. The Iraq first Gulf War happened and they tested it there. And this created a shock in the world military. The key lesson that came out that they got a first mover advantage in that. Now, today after that, there was Rand Commission, there were various other commissions. They came after the war was over. The war was basically 5 weeks of aerial war followed by 100 days of ground war. That is what Operation Desert Storm was all about. So the key lesson that came out of this whole thing was that look, battle networks were not perfect. Perhaps if they had been used against the Soviet Union, there would have been a huge problem because Soviet Union was a peer competitor. The second problem that came out was that look, actually what they were advertising through their media, which was their embedded media, that we have guided munition. The guided munition was just about 8%. Rest all were dumb bombs. But they could still create the shock and awe because here the situation was of a major power combating with a medium power. That is the key part that has to be understood. So today, in my assessment, a similar situation exists. Both US and China, they are competing in the entire artificial intelligence ecosystem, which if you want, I can explain later in the question and answer form. In that, along with that, it is a major power. PLA today is a major military power, now competing with a medium power, which is the Indian military. Because Indian military has always been focused on the Pakistan military. That is why we have set our sights higher, looking at what the PLA was trying to do. So there is a huge benefit because you do to build up your war concept, to test your technology, to test your what is called the TTPs, the tactics, techniques, and procedures, all these things. If you are able to actually use all those things in actual war against a medium adversary, which does not have that capability of electronic warfare, which does not have those cyber capabilities, which does not have the capabilities in the electromagnetic spectrum like the PLA has, that means there is no fear of any data poisoning. Operational data is available in ample. Training has been done. Ladakh crisis has been going on for the last 2.5 years. They've been observing what we have been doing, how our Air Force is reacting, and Air Force, how the Indian Army is reacting. All this is data. All this data is being used by the PLA. So in my assessment today, PLA is in an ideal situation because the enemy is known, the theater is known, and the capabilities are there. So if there is a campaign, they are well poised to do that. If they are able, if there is a campaign, if there is a war, whatever the duration of the war, which I have discussed in my book, how the war will pan out, all the details are there. So if there is a war, they will obviously have one of the big advantage will be the first mover advantage against their competitor, which is the US military. Now I come to the last part. The last part is what are we looking at in this artificial intelligence as artificial intelligence in warfare? How will the warfare change? The first thing that will happen is, and which is already happening, is that the gray zone operations will be on the rise. Gray zone operation is where you actually don't do combat, all the activities which are there below the threshold of combat. For example, for the last 2.5 years, dark, what Indian and has been doing is one in June of 2020, when both sides lost their soldiers, not a single shot was fired. That means everything gray zone operations. So in gray zone operation, in peacetime also, we will see more and more of cyber activity. And because AI will be tested in cyber, we will see enhanced cyber attacks. We will see enhanced disinformation and speedy disinformation. We will see better, precise cyber reconnaissance. We will see better and precise battlefield assessments through cyber attacks. All this will happen. Plus, the internet that goes in, there are 5 landing points where the internet comes into India. Similarly, Pakistan has landing points where the internet comes there. And as ELA ships or the subsea cables, submarine cables, they are the ships are there as to cut the internet. So you deny the internet to the country. You cut a couple of cables, doable. Then what will be on the rise is non-kinetic means. This is all in gray zone. Then what we are seeing is with the narrow intelligence, artificial narrow intelligence, there will be an acceleration in the speed and will be taken at the command of artificial intelligence, because there will be deep neural algorithms there in the command post where some information come, and if a human is to take a decision, what should be my plan? It is that deep neural network which will precisely that, look, these are your options and this is the best option that you should choose from, precise and accurate. So that is what will happen. Similarly, the can also be part of the manned system. So there will be a manned, unmanned teaming. All this is today. This is not in the future. And as I said, the theater is the Western Theater Command. How it happened, all details I have written. So, and this is not, I'm sure everybody. Second is that law, what we call is lethal, must not be commonplace. Basically, what this means is that there is a missile, you put artificial intelligence in the missile, and then you tell a missile, you give after that out it. The missile will decide how to accomplish that mission. It will go there, it will decide, all right, if there is a S400 battery to destroy, should I do it from the left side? Should I do it from top, from the right side? How I should do? So all that, that is all software thing, and that is what makes a missile into a lethal. So they will be commonplace because it is all software driven war. All this deep, see, the creation of the deep learning algorithms is all software driven, as I explained to you. And this is progressing at a fast pace. Computer scientists are working. What will next happen is progressively, we will see that the command and control will pass from the humans to the machines. Because the machine, and there is reliability, there is contextualization, there is trust in the machine that develops because of operational data, what has been collected. Thereafter, what will happen is that the human's role will become less and less. But the human role will be, in the sense, be the guys who will control the button, people who must understand the entire warfare. That means you cannot have human resources that today India and Pakistan has, because today the job is on the line of control. Both armies are there. So you need better caliber officers who understand this war, who understand cyber, electronic warfare, electromagnetic spectrum, who understand artificial, who understand all these things. And they are able to then apply, because these are the guys who will control the button. So this is what will happen. So what will happen is, at one stage, this is not happening now. Now I'm taking you a bit into the future. Now, what they are rightly saying is that once contextualization, abstraction, cognitive capability, slowly, they will come. That look, artificial intelligence will not stop, irrespective of whatever experiment or keep talking about, because this is that scientific thing. You don't stop science, it will continue. So we are looking at what is called eventually a battlefield singularity, where battlefield singularity means that the machine is giving you so better results that the human steps back. So at this stage, it is into the future that the nature of war changes. For example, now we are talking of the character of war. Character of war is how a war is to be fought. Nature of a war is what a war is. Any war is associated with violence and bloodshed. If you have machines fighting, where is the bloodshed? So what sort of rule then coined is something into the future. What is in the present is that today it is the end of networks. There will be no networks. The networks that we have been used of, we've been used to the network centric warfare that we keep talking. Then we are talking of, the Americans are talking of multi-domain operations. The Chinese are talking of informatized war, which is basically information superiority. So information superiority will be replaced by intelligence superiority, like hardware, software. Intelligence superiority will actually become a component of war. How do you have intelligence? You have more autonomy. In other words, the networks will not be there. What you will have eventually is you will have combat clouds. Combat cloud with intelligent networks. Look, I'm going at a big pace, but in the book I have explained all these things in quite detail. So, and then of course, as I said, there will be what we call the war in the war zone. At the same time, when we talk of strategic level, we talk of nuclear weapons creating a deterrence. You see, nuclear weapons have never been used after once they were used in the Second World War, because everybody knows what is the implication of using nuclear weapons. Even if you use a tactical nuclear weapons, it has a strategic implication. Nobody is going to use it. So, cyber is that thing. Cyber is the thing which will result in any country with weak cyber capabilities will have a early thing which has to be strengthened. And I'm happy that when I was there in April for your Islamabad security dialogue, the Army Chief General Bajwa spoke about cyber and how the cyber will be there in the Army, Air Force, and Navy, and of course with the civil also. So all those things. So there will be a combat zone and there will be a war zone. In the combat zone, a major part combating will be done at the operational level. Not at the tactical level. There will be no tactical wars. For example, I have heard from the Indian Air Force saying that, look, we have a lot of advantages against the PLA Air Force. But the point is, the PLA will fight at the operational level. At the operational level, it will not use its aircraft against your aircraft. It has other capabilities in other domains which will be used. And how they'll be used asymmetrically is what I have explained in the book. So this is in very brief what I thought I will explain what we have today: artificial narrow intelligence, which is workable. How Chinese can have the first advantage, first mover advantage in the artificial war, in this artificial backed war, and what are the very big things which will transform when artificial intelligence is used. You will have killer robots, you will have cognitive robots. All these things will happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sawhney, for a very insightful lecture. And I'm sure there are number of questions that the participants want to ask you. But before I open the floor for question answers, I would like to remind everyone that you can use the raise hand feature to indicate that you want to ask a question. Before you introduce yourselves about your designation or where you work or perhaps are studying. Sikandar, who can go first, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Sikandar Azam Khan. I'm a research fellow at Balochistan Think Tank Network based in Quetta, Balochistan. So, the topic that you have been discussing, in the movies and films, we tend to see technologies beyond human imagination. This is in a way preparing us for the upcoming technologies guided by artificial intelligence. What, in your perspective, will be the future of machines governing the mankind? Will there be a scenario like this? Which you were saying that artificial into them, and that. So my second question is relating to how this artificial intelligence will affect the statistic stability between Pakistan and India. Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir, do you want to take another question, or should we? Do you want to answer this right now?
This is your call. You decide.
Okay, I think Sikandar had asked two questions, so perhaps maybe you should respond to these, and then we can go on to Cheyenne.
All right. So as I said, right now the experts are divided. The experts are divided between what we have today, artificial narrow intelligence, and eventually what we will have, which is called the artificial general intelligence, where there'll be contextualization, abstraction, and cognition. All things will be there. That means we are looking at something called a terminator, something akin to a terminator. But in my opinion, the human mind will still always control the things. For the simple scientist, but I find it difficult to comprehend that how do you replicate 100 billion neurons? How do you replicate that same capability, the higher thinking capability that a human mind has? So in my assessment, we are moving. This genie is out of the bottle. It is not going back into the bottle. And all countries, despite whatever their public position is, what their public proclamation is, that look, we want to ban lethal atomic weapons, autonomous weapons, whatever their position be, but everybody is working towards. So this is my position. Now, regarding strategic stability between India and Pakistan, this is a very interesting question, and I want to tell that now past, where you should stop thinking in terms of India and Pakistan. You have to now bring China into the equation, for the simple reason China is today a player in South Asia. I keep hearing, there are so many centers across the world, especially think tanks in Washington. They are still stuck in India, Pakistan, India, Pakistan. No, it's not India, Pakistan any longer. Two things have to be added. It is India, Pakistan, China, and artificial intelligence and emerging technologies. They're all there. So when you talk of stability, now you're talking of entirely different models. It is not the same any longer that you keep bashing the nuclear thing and you say, all right, the stability will come this way or that way. It won't. So you have to keep into account artificial intelligence, but the emerging technologies, all those emerging technologies, it will eventually merge. It will converge into artificial intelligence. So this is my suggestion, that these two things, please keep in mind in case you are doing your research, to get your research correct. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, Cheyenne, you can ask your question.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
yes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to Sir Pravin for the very interesting lecture. Sir, you mentioned that both the US and China have very robust AI ecosystems. And it's very clear that in terms of AI and other technologies, that they have a very good civil and military, nexus as well. So what lessons can states like India and Pakistan learn from these states? And so secondly, my second question is that, sir, in terms of own research is also in AI. So, sir, China's capabilities are often seen through a Western lens. So we don't really know much about China's military capabilities as such from their own perspective. So how did you do your own research? If you could tell me that, like what sources are best to see China's own piece from their own perspective?
So your first thing is that what can India and Pakistan learn? I think this was your first question, Sayan. Now the point is, what you can learn is that you do your own. I mean, look. What we need today in India and Pakistan is based on our threats and the need for prosperity, because artificial intelligence is a dual purpose technology of technologies. It's not a technology, it's a technology of technologies. And it is dual purpose. It can be used, in fact, it is triple purpose. It will determine the geopolitics of the world. It will determine the prosperity through the fourth industrial revolution, which I have discussed in detail in my book. And it will also be used in warfare. So, for example, Pakistan has rightly decided, as I understand, which I have mentioned in my book also, that cyber is one area we need to look at. And another area that your Air Force seems to be looking at is the electromagnetic spectrum. So every country has to have its emerging technologies and artificial intelligence technology plan. So that is what we need to do. Now, how did I get to do the research in this area? You are absolutely right. Most of the material that comes is through the Western literature, which should be studied because there are a lot of experts. In fact, I have learned a lot from one expert, which I won't mention now, but I have expressed my great gratitude to him in the book, in the author's note, right at the beginning. I've learned a lot from him. But having said that, I was very fortunate to have been invited by the PLA itself, by the PLA to their three forums, that Shikshangshu forum that they hold. I was there in 2015, 2018, 2019, and in 2018, they also took me to the Academy of Military Sciences. I got an opportunity to interact firsthand with the PLA officers who are very friendly and or they are stiff, at least they will, that is equally helpful. So I think these are the two ways that I learned, and I have quoted extensively from the forums that I have attended and what I learned from them. In fact, they are there at the beginning of all the chapters. I hope I've answered you, Sayan.
Thank you, Mr. Sawhney. Imran, you can go ahead, please.
Thank you, Imran Abbas, Assistant Professor at University of Sargodha. My question to Pravin is, sir, you have mentioned about that in a situation where a major military power is fighting against a lesser military power, don't you think that once they will apply these artificial intelligence and emerging in the warfare, the lesser power will have no other option but to go for kinetic means that are more destructive, and hence there will be a situation where due to the situation of the technological gap, they will resort to their maximum options available, and this will disturb or likely lower down the threshold. If the lesser power is a nuclear power, that will bring down the threshold, because there's no other option, because they have been like spoofed from the very battle zone. And the second question is, once you talk about the battle networks, the synergy between the units that are operating in the battlefield requires other than the primary assigned task, like one soldier helping the other soldier in a situation where network got disrupted. So do you think that those sister tasks or services will also be included in the moment and the autonomy that on the move is say robots or other gadgets that will be employed will be just going without a synergy that existed.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Imran, your two questions. The first one is that a major power and a lesser power. You are probably hinting at nuclear weapons, that the lesser power will use nuclear weapons. Now, let's first get to the kinetic part, kinetic and the non-kinetic part. Now, for example, takes the straight example of India and PLA, Indian military. Indian military believes that there are 3 domains of war, whereas the PLA believes there are 7 domains of war. So what the PLA will be doing is it will be synergizing those 7 domains of war into what they call action. Joint operational plan will be made, and according to that, I mean, it works as, I'm not going in the details right now of this, but the point I want to make is, for example, it will be standoff capabilities. It will be capabilities, for example, cyber, electronic warfare, jamming the communications, denying the communications. All this happens at the speed of light. When you talk of your traditional kinetic firepower, you are talking of 1 Mach, 2 Mach, 3 Mach, 4 Mach. You're not talking of the speed of light. Now they have a capability in directed energy weapons. They have a capability in cyber. They have a capability in which all is at the speed of light. Having said that, they also have a capability. For example, as I was just hinting, and I stopped then there itself. For example, they will not, like India and Pakistan, when they combat, it is Air Force fighting with the Air Force, which will not be the case between Indian military and the PLA or the PLAF. PLAF need not fight with the Indian Air Force, because the Indian Air Force will be fought by their rocket force, which is their missiles, the missiles that they have. It will be fought by their A2AD capabilities, which is anti-access area denial capabilities. You see, which is by their DEUs. So the point I'm making is it will be impossible for the Indian Air Force to even get into the Chinese airspace. So and the missiles Chinese today, the rocket force Chinese today have is one of the most advanced missiles in the world. So it is a different warfare. Now coming to the, which is what I have explained, and I recommend everybody who is doing something in national security to read this book, because we have been, even in India, there is so much, that we always think of Pakistan, you always think of India, and rightly so. You rightly so, and for us it is wrong. We should have kept the sights high. Now, so it is only how they will combat that. These guys did a Balakot, and then on 27th, the PF did a grand operation which was spectacular. But the point is, it is one Air Force against the other Air Force. This is not the war. The war will be entirely different. I have taken a lot of pains and explained this in my book. It's not that I'm trying to sell my book. It will help you all to understand the new dynamics of the coming war. Please read that. Now, coming to the nuclear weapons. See, again, on the nuclear weapons, see what is happening. On the nuclear side, what is happening is, I'll give you the example. Uh, Between US and China has less nuclear weapons than America. But China today has very strong conventional capabilities in the Taiwan Strait. That means in the Taiwan Strait, if the Americans try to do a conventional, can go wholly, because they will not be able to do war control. Unable to do war control, you cannot meet the objectives of war. Then why do you go to war in the first place? So what they have done is they have built the conventional capabilities, but they realize that conventional deterrence is not enough. Nuclear deterrence also is required. You would have seen in their latest research which is coming out, you see the reports. Now they are building more and more nuclear weapons of different capabilities. The Chinese, why are they doing it? because they have created nuclear deterrence also. Then the cyber deterrence to be created. So for between India and China, as you were suggesting, or you were indicating or insinuating that India may end up using nuclear weapons, it won't, because there will be weapons which will be on launch on warning. Because how are we sure that they would not have used their cyber capabilities and disabled our weapons? See, these are all, this is a new war which has to be understood in its entire dynamics. Because after all, I'm making this is no secret that 70% of India's electronics, they come from China. I do not know where they have put the backdoors, where they have put their capabilities, where are the backdoors, what they can do. I don't know. Can they disable that? So you see, it is not so clean as we make it out to be. Now we have entered into a very complex age, a very complex age where artificial intelligence, as Putin mentioned in 27, whichever artificial intelligence will be the ruler of the world, something like that, he said. And that is precisely what it is. Because you get your prosperity through the warfare, everything is what you need is imaginative leaders, you generals. You see, perhaps our generals need to read more. This is what I keep saying. Oh, that old war is over, yaar, wo khatam ho gayi wo ladai. Chhod usko. It is a new war altogether. Please understand what is going on. Because why you have to understand is because China is right here. And China is today pitted against the US. I hope I have answered Imran. Imran made another point about assisting another soldier, human soldier. See, we are looking at a war where in the forefront, first of all, there will be nothing. Now, this is very interesting. Please understand, Imran. When there is PLA, a major power pitted against it will be only a combat zone. Across combat zone, nothing stops from using their rocket force. Nothing stops them because all the targets are known, stick targets marked. So you see this line of control business, line of contact business कि वो उसकी मदद कर रहा है, वो उसको वो खत्म है वो जो human होंगे, the few soldiers who are there, they have got the exoskeleton. You must have a lot of pictures of Chinese PLA soldiers. Look, I'm not a soldier 10 feet tall. What I'm trying to do is that please understand the capabilities of the tools that are pitted against Russia and China, and please understand why the tech war is going on. Please understand what's going on. Why people are talking about split the why they're talking of supply chains being separate. There's a reason this is happening. So the concepts are different of war. It is not what happens between India and Pakistan. कि उसने गोली मार दी, उसने भी गोली मार दी, यहाँ भी जख्मी हो गया, वहाँ भी जख्मी हो वो उठा के ले गया. I hope I have answered you, Imran.
Thank you, Mr. Sawhney.
Thank
So we have a couple of questions in the chat, and I'll read it for you. First question is from Jawad Ali Shah, who is a research assistant at the Center for National Strategic Studies, SEND. And he wants to know, what is your take on the legal and ethical aspect of artificial intelligence, the development of lethal autonomous weapon systems, and ethical aspect. And secondly, he wants to know why you have given your book the title of The Last War. Then we have a question from Amna Saqib, who is a research officer at, and she wants to know, do emerging technologies lead to shifts in balance of power on the global stage with attendant risks for conflict and miscalculation?
Okay. Good, both good questions. First of all, I mentioned also in passing that lethal autonomous weapons have come to stay. Killer robots and robots are software driven. Be able to make out if you see a bot, whether it is an intelligent robot, whether it is an autonomous, or it is which is now controlled from by communicating somebody else controlling it. Now, legal, the militaries, the countries will, no military will take a chance. So legal is fine as a point. Ethics, legality, very good as debating point. To just the practicality of it, no country, no military will be surprised in warfare, no military additional surprises. So this is my position on that. Why it is called Last War, you have to read the book to know why I've answer is there. Now to the emerging technologies. Emerging technologies, sorry, what is the Haleema, can you just repeat that question?
Yes,
please?
I will. So the question is, do emerging technologies lead to shifts in the balance of power on global stage with attendant risk, conflict, and miscalculation?
Absolutely. But the second part, I will not agree. The second part of attendant risk and manipulation, the major past, especially the Americans are very keen to know what are the red lines of the PA. Miscalculation can happen, but the chances are less between major powers. I'm talking of peer competitors. You see? So, but yes, emerging technologies, as I said, artificial intelligence, emerging technologies, one of their roles is in geopolitics. You are absolutely right. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. So we move on to Hassan. You can ask your question. Please do introduce yourself before asking the question.
I hope you can hear me. Hassan Ahmed, I'm a graduate of international relations. Is that, as we know, artificial intelligence is not, you can say, a weapon, but it makes weapons more effective or more, you can say, better. And hence, they are not covered in any international and things. So, and also there exists no consensus among nations regarding military during the threat. That do you see that especially big powers have to, or they can reach us about what artificial intelligence is and how it has to be used military? Any?
Yeah. Okay. I'll get on to artificial intelligence. Let me make a clear distinction between platforms and capabilities. These are entirely two different. When we say weapon platforms, we are talking of platforms in the physical domains. We are talking of the physical domain of land, physical domain of air, physical domain of sea, and physical domain of near space, physical domain of space. We are talking about that. So we are talking about weapons. When we are talking capabilities which are virtual, capabilities are there in cyber capabilities will play a big role in all this. This is artificial intelligence at the end of the day is about creating the right deep learning algorithms, which is a mathematical modeling. How you can get that correct today, how you can have the operational data, it is about that. And as far as is concerned, they are not talking today in terms of weapon platforms. They are talking of the capabilities also which have gone in the weapon platforms. And that is, it can be a man tank, with capabilities, the same tank becomes an unmanned tank. But the weapon plan, I think, is a terminology which is of another time, another age, which is only used by Indian and Pakistani military officers. So weapon platforms are out only in terms of capabilities. Now, when you are talking of software-driven capabilities, it is absolutely difficult to have any sort of arms control. How do you have arms control? When you cannot distinguish whether this guy, I mean, you're seeing, unlike the physical platforms, how do you know what the platform has inside it? So, has still not reached that stage. Our experts are still not thinking about that. But that is one area that needs to be looked at. Another area is how do you create deterrence? That's the beauty of this whole thing is, for example, now need not read the new theories of Americans of the 50s, 60s, 70s to understand, because today she is at par with the best thinkers in the world as far as emerging technologies are concerned, because nobody knows about it. So the whole idea is, with the technologies which are there, how do you create, how do you optimize those technology with imaginative and dynamic war concepts? How do you create deterrence? How do you convey deterrence? I mean, these are subjects, because all the research that was done, in my assessment, once you read the book, The Last War, you'll realize there are a lot of areas where I have given these, I've just left the thoughts, where perhaps more research is required. You need to do more research. Because
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm going to close the list for about 15 minutes. No, okay, sorry. I thought we have time till 5 o'clock, but I can see that we can have this session, this can have some time. So what the chat, and then we can move for you can ask your question. This is from Alina. Alina is a student of BS IR at the Air University Islamabad, and she has two questions. First, she wants to know, shouldn't developing countries begin with using AI for civil purposes in order to familiarize their people with the technology in warfare? And then she wants, will there ever be an end to the need for generating deterrence? Countries always have to compete with each other.
right. So, as I said, most of these emerging technologies, and especially artificial intelligence, this is incubated on the civil side. It is incubated on the commercial side. That is where, for example, the concept of Internet of Things came on the commercial side. That how we can use the upper end networks, wireless network, create those lessons learned from the commercial side are being used as a spin-off, as a major spin-off on the warfare side. Which is why I say that today Pakistan, which is what I have argued, I have written 15,000 words on this, that you guys are poised to enter the fourth industrial revolution if you can get your political stability correct. Don't mind my saying so. If you can get that correct, you can do a lot, notwithstanding the economic Pakistan is facing today. So all these things are there in the civil, not for PC. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor will be the flagship of BRI, and BRI is the dream project, create the China dream for Xi Jinping. That is it. But I suppose still it has not seeped down in Pakistan. Perhaps I seem to be understanding it more. Now, the other thing is about competing. Yes, of course, everybody is competing. I mean, there is competition, if I have understood your question. there is competition, so deterrence has to be spelled out. These are all new areas. Everything is new. Everything has to be done afresh. I hope I have answered you.
Yes, thank you. So Faraz, you can go ahead.
Yep, thank you, Sir Praveen. It was a very quite insightful talk. My question is that do you think that India will be, or do you envision India incorporating artificial intelligence in its indigenous air defense systems, such as the Prithvi and the other one, the name of which I'm forgetting? And somewhat relatedly, do you think there's any benefit for Pakistan if it tries to invest money in a similar air defense system, or would it be more prudent to invest in sort of disruptive technologies, EW, electronic means, to counter any perceived threat from such air defense systems or anti-ballistic missile defense systems? Thank you.
Right. So first of all, it's a very question that will the entry use AD systems? I don't know what they'll do. They haven't told me this. Now, the point I have to make is please see in totality. Electronic warfare is not an emerging technology. Electronic warfare has been there right beginning of warfare, or at least right from the Second World War, or the Second World War. It has been there as one of the big things, the electronic warfare. What has changed now is, or what is changing now is, artificial intelligence and electronic warfare, which is called cognitive electronic warfare, which is what Air Force has taken up as a major project, artificial intelligence and computing center that they have opened in 20. So the point is that electronic warfare is specific to warfare, military, but the emerging technology, most of the is the technology of technologies. It can be applied everywhere and anywhere. Where exactly we would want to do, they're not gonna tell you. Because that is where the operational surprise driven war, the operational surprises will be there. I hope, Faraz, I have answered you.
Thank you. So in the chat from Mr. Ali, who is a research officer at the Center for National Strategic Studies, Islamabad, is regarding the credibility of non-kinetic weapons. Will there be some issues regarding the credibility of capability, and how can we demonstrate and communicate with the adversary for kinetic and non-kinetic, ASAT weapons?
I honestly haven't understood your question. Let me guess what you're trying to say. What you are asking me is about the non-kinetic capabilities. I understand that is what you're asking me. So
He's probably using that we relate in conflict, deterrence, the capability, and the credibility aspect, wants to know in context of how can you relate to that context of non-kinetics.
sorry, what are the two?
Capability and credibility. Capability. Capability. Yeah.
Capability and credibility. Credible. So I've still not understood what has credibility got to do with non-kinetic weapons. I have not understood the question.
Samran, do you perhaps want to ask?
Yeah, because non-kinetic weapon, what is a non-kinetic? Not your directed energy weapons, your electronic warfare. This is all non-kinetic. These are weapons, which is of course part of the DEU. So this is your non-kinetic capabilities. So credibility means what of non-kinetic? I haven't understood the question.
Yeah, no, I get that. Samran, if you can Perhaps to ask. Yeah. Okay, I think there's some issue with his mic. So I will take the next question, which is from Jamal Nasir, and he wants to know if in a Sino-India conflict, would the Western democracies support India in technological terms, like they are doing in case of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and they have kind of deterred or perhaps countered Russian moves in several areas by supporting Ukraine? That's his question, as far as I understood from what you wrote in chat.
These are really different. Happening in the Ukraine-Russia war is about NATO expansion. De facto, Ukraine has been out of NATO because they've been doing exercises with the NATO countries. They have NATO equipment, and it is in the interest of the United States to keep supplying them. Basically, in my understanding, Americans are using this war for two purposes, two objectives. Objective number one is that they are using the Ukrainians in the war to die, Russian militarily. That is one, which is something that they have Union had dissolved in 19. And the second is that they are trying to keep a hold through NATO on the European allies. In fact, today there is a talk also of Asian NATO that is going on, which the Chinese are opposing. So this is an entirely different ball game. As far we India is a strategic partner, but not a military ally of the Americans. Record saying that we have shared situation awareness with them. The things also like clothing things and data war. India's war. India alone will be fighting its war.
My premise. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Jamal Nasir said, sir.
Go ahead.
Sir, my premise is that India is democracy and has a positive outlook. So Western democracies would support India in any future Sino-India conflict, the ongoing war of Ukraine-Russia, and Russia being a major cyber to launch a significant attack against Ukraine. And this cooperation might be possible in any Sino-India conflict, and they would, Western democracies would support technologically India to cyber intelligence-based operation against India. This is
okay. I don't agree with you, and here is my reason. It has nothing to do with democracy. It has to do with national interest. Every country has to see its own national interest. In peacetime, yes, we have signed a MOU on sharing of some artificial intelligence, something has been done. But in war, they are not going to come and fight our war. It is totally ruled out, except support, try and give us support in areas where their hand is not seen. They will make sure that their hand is not seen. It has nothing to do with democracy. The other point you made is very interesting, that about Russia losing the Ukraine war. My assessment is just the opposite. I don't agree with that. You see, if you see Lavrov, he has given a statement yesterday. They have also changed the objective of war. Now they are says that our objective is overthrowing the present regime of President Zelensky. The objective has changed of war. And you see the problems that the Europeans are facing, and let the winter come. The amount of Europeans, especially Germany, because of oil and gas, which has been restricted from Russia. And see today how the dollar is faring against the euro. I don't think, and the commission that everybody is talking of in America, the prices have gone up because of this war. So I don't think really that the Russians are losing the war. And mind you, they never started the war. It was a special military operation. Please understand. The big difference between the two is there is a big difference. A war, then you all your capability to all your capability to land, which the Russians never did right from the beginning of the military operation, because most capabilities they have held back for NATO, just in case NATO gets into the act. They're not gonna use, so therefore they are calling it special military operation, and which of course has not got the investment. There's no doubt about it. If you see the industrial complex, if you see it's not the number of missiles that the Americans can give or the others can give to Ukraine. And who's dying? The Ukrainians are dying. The whole country is devastated. So who's winning? I don't know. If the Russians have moved the goalpost substantially, then obviously today they believe that they'll accomplish that, which is why now they're talking of overthrow of the regime. So this is my
Introduce yourself before asking the question.
Thank you. Am I audible? Yes, sir. Thank you for providing me this opportunity to ask the question. My name is Mero. I'm from Mysore, Karnataka, and I'm studying in 12th standard. Sir, my question to you would be something related to the previous one. It was related to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The fact is, you said if India engages war in Quad and crosses the PLA's red lines, the PLA would not hesitate to start a war against India. Would that be a full-fledged war, or will they also hold back their capabilities, most of their capabilities, like how the Russians are doing? US and NATO are their main their defined enemies. That was my first question. And one more thing related to something now, that you said that the Russian foreign minister changed his objective of the war. It the same, because the objective of the war in the starting was, sorry, the special military operation when they started was to demilitarize Ukraine and have a regime of Mr. Putin. So how has it changed now? That was first question. And my second question is, I really found it nice when you told about Deep Blue, which against Gary Kasparov, though it had nothing to do with artificial intelligence. It was more about moves faster. It could calculate around a few millions of moves in per second. But now, if you see, there's another machine computer called uh, Alpha Zero, which is an AI which played against itself for 4 hours and became the strongest computer in the world, not lost to any humans, and has lost only to a few another hybrid machines. So is this how the PLA is also trying to achieve its military aims by studying the operational data, which the program which started from 2018 and will end in 2013, where AI will fight against, in the sense, study against itself and find the best outcome for abilities. Thank you, sir.
Meru, all three great questions.
I'm sorry, sir.
And
I was a bit nervous.
no, all very good questions. And the sad part is, what was your first question? Please repeat that.
Oh, yes,
Please repeat.
sir, my
Yeah.
first.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes,
I
sir.
recall.
So my first.
Okay. I got it. Meru, see, it's like this. In case of a India-China war, PLA will make sure that it is a lightning campaign, a decisive war, an occupational war in the minimal time. Please buy a book. Since you are an Indian, it will be easy for you to get The Last War. It starts only with a war scenario. You will understand what I am saying. The PLA will want to finish, which is why even in the advertisement that the Amazon is putting out of my book, they are saying that it will be over in 10 days, the PLA war. It will actually be over much before that. So that is your first, answering the first question. What do I think? the Russians are doing is entirely different. When this whole thing, special military operation started of Ukraine, then they were talking of Donbass area. They were talking of demilitarization. That means no nuclear weapons coming in. They were talking of denazification, but they were not talking of regime change. I have heard, I did not hear this before. Now it is being spoken of regime change, that Zelensky has to go. That is a very big thing now. Which basically means that they are now willing to continue with the maximum military force, military power of Ukrainians plus what they are getting from outside. So in my assessment, this is the. And third question, I didn't quite understand. But what if you want to repeat, you can go ahead and repeat. But what I have understood generally is, because your voice was a bit muffled, that artificial intelligence has made strides elsewhere and the PLAs to learn from there. Obviously, everybody is learning from everywhere. I hope the first two questions I have answered.
Yes, sir, the first two questions were answered. Sir, my third question was related to the introduction you started about the Deep Blue which played against Kasparov and lost only a handful times.
Yeah.
And then I told about Alpha Zero, which was an actual AI machine which learned which played against itself for 4 hours continuously and became the strongest AI machine in chess. Is technique somehow which PLA is using in militarily, the PLA and the US military?
A lot of lessons have been learned. The PLAs also, they have learned, but as I was about calculations. Now this Lee Sedol, if you remember, there was a competition that happened in 2016. You see, which the world watched, and Lee Sedol, who was a Go champion, he lost to the machine. See, so that was what is the artificial intelligence part, because that was done by reinforced learning. It's called reinforced learning, where a computer uh, plays the game by itself, you see, or it gets some output, some inputs from the previous games. So when you get the input that, all right, this game was played there and the result was a positive or a negative. So that is called reinforced learning. Play, and all this was watched not only by the PLA, it was also watched by the commercial, the corporate sector of China, because they also learned the lesson. And the lesson they learned was all the internet companies there, which had a lot of data. They learned that now you have to move to be information superiority to superiority of artificial intelligence. And that is precisely what is going on. I hope I have answered it.
Thank you, sir.
So, okay, Shayan, you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So you made a very interesting point right now, that if there is a potential India-China war, it could be over in less than 10 days. First mover advantage as early as next year, 2023. So, sir, if that is the case, then what steps can India take in that 1 year time period? Because obviously 1 year is not enough time to build an AI ecosystem. So should India focus that 1 year?
Okay. I did not specify 2023. The year I have specified is in my book. You have to read that. That's one. Number two is what the Secretary of State has said. That this is my suggestion to them, or this is the roadmap that I would suggest to them. So I have not been consulted. I hope I have answered you.
Okay, thank you so much. So I don't see any more raised raise your hand so I can ask you or invite you to ask the question. So in the meanwhile, I do have a question. Incidentally, while I was also reading up on lethal autonomous weapon systems and artificial intelligence, I got to know that UN Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons has a meeting ongoing this week, and they are also addressing this issue of arms control in the areas of laws and killer robots. So my question to you would be, how do you see the prospects of arms control in this area? Do you see these efforts being successful? Because specifically this particular convention, they have been at it, or the state parties have been trying to do something about it for the past 8 years, if I'm not wrong.
So it's a very good question. And if you see the results of the last 2 years, in the last 2 years, both China and America have supported a ban on lethal autonomous weapons, killer robots. So all the countries will take this posture, a positive posture. But as I said, this is a software-driven war. What they are doing, the other will not know. And nobody is going to be left behind just because they have taken some altruistic position. You see, at the UN, I don't think any military worth its salt would want to be left behind. So that is my response to your question.
Okay, thank you so much. Then I also was thinking about laws or artificial intelligence for that matter. And don't you think so? It kind of adds another complexity to the warfare, another level of or another set of challenges that armies or militaries have to now think about or plan about. So doesn't that even complicate these matters even more?
See, there is, I'll tell you what, the biggest problem will come from the mindsets of the militaries. It is virtually impossible. It is very difficult to nudge the militaries to change. They don't change. This is the problem, which is where the PLS cause. Why the PLS cause is because there the diktat is given by the commander-in-chief and everybody falls in place. Today, the biggest thing which is worrying the Americans is the civil military industrial fusion of China, which they say is way ahead, and which is the case it is. So the first thing is the traditional resistance of the militaries is one. Second is you have to get the bright people now, because you need imaginative concepts. This is precisely what I have written in this book, that look, all your concepts of warfare, they will change because the character of war is changing drastically, and this will keep changing constantly, which means that the countries today need better think tanks who are doing some independent work, whether the establishment likes or doesn't like. Because where do you get the ideas from? The military officers don't have the time from day-to-day things. So somebody has to give them the options and the ideas. So this is the whole point, that we have entered the age of artificial intelligence, and the world will change, and it is already changing. And in the next 10 years, we will see drastic changes happening everywhere. Your driverless cars, I mean, that is another matter that I just had a power problem. The lights went off here. You see, we are grappling with these small things. But otherwise, the world, the major powers, they are looking at things in a very different way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Faraz, you have a question?
My question is, so you've mentioned how China has a great AI ecosystem, and its supremacy in these AI-based and cyber technologies is very evident. And for India, it's more of a concern because of the threat perceptions. But do you think that for Pakistan, should their prowess in this area be seen as a concern, or would you characterize it more as an opportunity for Pakistan?
So, sorry, Pakistan, opportunity, and what is the word you used before? It should be seen as.
So, do you see it more as a concerning thing that China's capabilities in AI and cyber tech? So, is it more of a opportunity for Pakistan, or is it more of a concern, or should it be seen as more of a concern?
Listen, it is an opportunity for Pakistan. You guys, I was there. You released your first national security policy. There you said connectivity and human factor will be uppermost. I don't think in the last 4 months you've done much on connectivity. If I have read the reports correct, the Chinese are not very happy with the progress. So the point I'm making is, for us, Pakistan has a great opportunity, not only in warfare and prosperity. If the Chinese can pull out 800 million people, they can do a miracle. Pakistanis, despite whatever the Indians may say, my thinking is entirely different on Pakistan. You have intelligent people. You need stability. That's all. You have a great partner in China, a great partner in Russia. I mean, these are the countries which are reaching out, that come and talk to us. I hope I've answered you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. So in context of AI being used in warfare, and then this whole idea of changing the character of warfare, don't you think so that perhaps another survival skills that the humans would then also have to develop would be how to evade or how to protect themselves from AI sensors? And so perhaps maybe developing some sort of AI camouflage capabilities. And how do you see prospects of those, whether those would be useful, or perhaps or the added, again, the issue of added complexity, and this issue of protecting the human lives in context of once these killer robots, once these laws are actually functional in the battlefield.
Right. So first of all, I have listed in one of my chapters the great opportunity that Pakistan has in getting to share the situation awareness that the Chinese today can provide through their Beidou system. Okay. Today, the Chinese have a capability, Beidou is just one of them, that the entire battle space, I don't call it a battlefield any longer. I call it a battle space or a combat zone. You will not be, nobody will be able to hide in the combat zone. So where will the command and control be? How it is to be done? This is what I said. These are those challenges. First challenge is to understand these technologies. Second challenge is to see at what level they are to be used, whether at the tactical level or at the operational level. Third channel is to see that do we first prioritize the war concept or the technique, tactics, and procedures, which is at the tactical level. So these are huge challenges. And this is something that any country, only specific to warfare. See, your big advantage are two. Pakistan military has two big advantages. Their advantage number one is that they have a clear identified enemy. You see, from where they see the existential threat. So therefore, they have to only be able to have a capability which competes with them, with their identified enemy. They don't really have to go overboard, which is not the case with India. India has to compete with China. So that is your first advantage. Second advantage is that you actually are in a position today, for various reasons, strategically, politically, technologically, with the PLA, with China. So it is your leadership to make use of major advantages you have. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so I have an explosive question from Hashim Kumar. I am saying explosive, you understand it once you listen to what he says. Giving an AI nuclear weapons, what could possibly go wrong in future?
See, as I said, first of all, it is a very, please don't mind it is a scholarly statement. It is not a military statement to make. And I'll explain why, what he has said. See, nuclear weapons, first of all, your adversary will be targeting the kill chain. The kill chain is the one which has to deliver the nuclear weapon. And the battle networks and the operating systems are part of the kill chain. So the kill chain will be targeted by cyber. It will be targeted by electronic warfare. So what is the guarantee that actually your nuclear weapons will work to begin with? So it is a scholarly statement. You can keep doing research on this. But in practical terms, the adversary will first be looking at, because you are a nuclear weapon state, that, okay, warning, are they disassembled? In the first use capability, the plan, they will make sure that you don't even get to use the nuclear weapons. And please understand on the second part of it, second part of that is more dangerous. And that part is, it is easy to say nuclear weapons. Please read in details about nuclear radiation, the effects of nuclear radiation and in which area. So it is not only India which will be affected, Pakistan will also be affected because of contiguity. So it is all, which is why your military rightly always maintains a parity at the operational level of conventional war. That is the reason. That is the reason you did 27th February, Operation Swift Retort, because you had to showcase the parity at the Air Force level. Because both the countries do tactics. We don't do operational. We call it operations, but actually we do tactics. Either se chala gaya, uso hi aa gaya agle din. You see, so nuclear weapons is good, you can discuss, but I hope I have answered you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so I think we have the last question for the evening. This is Mr. Sen. Please do introduce yourself and then ask the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Sen, you can ask the question now.
Yeah, Saurabh, where's he gone? He's hiding.
He just asked in the chat, but
I think that poor chat
is
muted. He's muted. I can see something here. He seems to be muted. So what was his question, by the way?
No, he didn't write it in the...
Sandeep, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, absolutely. So you can do that. All right. So with that, I think we are going to end, or perhaps we are going to just end today's session. Lecture on artificial intelligence in warfare, I think are perhaps very relevant for the current times, for the future. And it's not just Indian or Chinese military, but Pakistani military, which has to think and perhaps plan about the future of warfare in context of all these issues. And for us as scholars, this gives us a really good opportunity to perhaps learn more about these concepts, these ideas, and read and write more, and perhaps try to address the issues that were also raised during this talk, during this interactive session as well. The issues, the challenges related to the use of artificial intelligence in warfare. While I'm going to stop here, Mr. Pravin, if you have any thoughts, any questions, or anything, any ideas that you want. So
Okay.
thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Faraz, it's over to you if you want to make some concluding remarks now.
No, just I think this was a very great session where we got into specifics, and Sir Praveen really opened our eyes in terms of the benefit and the technicalities of artificial intelligence and how it already is and how it will be incorporated into warfare in the future. So thank you so much on behalf of Surf Asia. It was a very informative session. So thank you again for taking out the time. And I think with that, we can close. Just one small announcement. Tomorrow's session is on the US-China military competition, which I think is somewhat related to today's discussion. So it will be a very interesting one with Dr. Tong Zhao. It will happen at 6 p.m. Pakistan time, 6 to 8 p.m. Pakistan time tomorrow. So I look forward to seeing everyone there. And yep, that's all from today. We can close out. Thank you.
Thank you, Faraz. Thank you, Mr. Sawhney. Bye, everyone.